Thank you. And right behind there.
Thank you. My question goes to the presenter from Afghanistan and Mauritania and India. How do you avoid elite capture or elite control of the programs that you've talked about? Because considering the social structures in these countries, elite capture and elite control is very, very easy. My next question goes to Lisa about the private sector. The private sector, in my experience, tend to go more for food fortification rather than food diversification. Now, or biofortification. How do you convince them that this has to be done? Because as far as they're concerned, profit is their motive. I'm Kabaja, and I'm a health consultant. I'm a pediatrician too.
So you're not alone. Okay, great. That's a robust set of questions. I think we'll try and answer those and then maybe go to another round. And I do apologize, but I'm going to have to step down and appreciate all of the answers that are about to come. And Emily, if you can facilitate the additional questions, that would be great. Thank you very much. Maybe if we can start, I think, Lisa, there were a couple set of questions for you. If we could start by that, and then we can just go down. Great.
Sure, I'd be happy to address. Thanks to the audience for some very good comments and questions. And actually, my answers do sort of link together a bit. I think the issue that Rita raised about the distrust and skepticism of the private sector is a very important one to acknowledge. And that distrust and skepticism didn't come out of thin air. It usually is based on some real history, which needs to be acknowledged and addressed. But as she also recognized, there is a lot of goodwill and a lot of potential for the private sector to make a better contribution going forward. So my answer to the question, shouldn't we tell business what we want, is yes, absolutely. And some of the most exciting and interesting work that we've done is looking at what so-called base of the pyramid business models, these very innovative new approaches that businesses are taking to engage with poor communities. And one of the main factors of success in whether businesses are able to make those business models work is whether they do listen to the community and understand the community. Because if they don't understand that, then the business model won't work. So that has to do with approaching the community in a very dignified manner as their customers, their suppliers, and their business partners, and saying, you're my customer, what do you want and what do you need and what challenges do you face and how could my business operations help to address those? You're my supplier, how can I help you to produce at the quality standards that I need to buy on the timing I need to buy? Let's work together in a practical way to try to achieve that. So we found that with the companies that had achieved a real breakthrough in finding a business model that made this work, that listening was a really essential factor of success, where they suddenly understood what it was that their customer or business partner needed and how to change their operations and make that work. For the gentleman that asked about the food fortification versus biofortification, I think the answer really lies in the market and creating a market and making businesses aware of that market demand. And so if companies have perceived and are trying to meet a demand for fortified foods more vigorously than trying to develop sort of a supply of biofortified foods, that indicates sort of a gap that needs to be filled in terms of creating and highlighting the demand that may be there in the market that businesses could then respond to and invest in developing through R&D. I guess that lastly, both of these answers relate to what I would highlight as our unique challenge at the World Economic Forum. I think our greatest challenge has also been our greatest inspiration, which is really addressing the barriers of trust and communication that have hampered greater collaboration between business and other sectors historically. And so we found that there's a lot of bridge building and understanding that needs to be created to help business work productively with government, civil society, and communities. But that when that barrier does fall and when the breakthrough happens and people realize they have a common goal and they could find a new solution, a new way to work together, that's actually one of the most inspiring and rewarding results that we see.
Thank you very much. Regarding your question, sir, about the elites, the challenge of the elite capture, I'll answer for Afghanistan because I don't know Mauritania well enough. The design of the way we worked was really about integrating an ongoing program, so it very much depended also on how those programs operated. And in Afghanistan, there was a wide rural development program looking at local governance structures that was trying to create fora that were elected and to a certain extent reducing that. But technically, we can be careful in the way, in the operation, the interventions we choose. For example, interventions like poultry projects or home-based food processing are interventions that do not require access to land and water, for example, and therefore can be well targeted to resource asset-poor households. Same thing with working with schools or school gardens or literacy circles. When these are quite broad-based interventions, you can reach a number of issues. But of course, it is always a challenge and something we need to be careful about. Another challenge, madam, is the sustainability. I think 80% of our work was training, and the problem is staff turnover. And so you need to train people again and again, and also working with partners on the ground level. That depends on the strength of the partners, in particular NGOs, which are often there on the ground, and in particular local partners. So that calls for the need to institutionalize a lot of the training we're doing. And now currently there's a new joint program in Afghanistan that is trying to integrate nutrition modules in service and pre-service training in the health and agricultural and education sectors. I hope they will be able to do that, but I think that's really an area we need to invest much more in. I'd finally like to respond to some of the points that Rita was raising under the private sector and so on. I think I see that mostly from France, where I live in rural France when I'm not in Rome, and it's been very interesting to see how the pressure from consumer organizations for more healthy diets, especially with the growing concern of chronic disease and cancer and growing concern about the environment, has been pushing supermarkets, for example, to develop more supply of organic foods and so on. So I think, and that does not need to be only in the West. It's not, Afghan women we were working with on food processing were telling me, finally, we know we've got a good quality jam rather than cheap imported Iranian stuff with lots of sugar and preservatives. So it's not just the thing of the rich to be concerned about one's health and one's nutrition. I think we can work a lot on that field, and I'd really like to take this opportunity to call for us to maybe stop making the distinction between malnutrition in the developing world and malnutrition in the West. I remember sitting in a meeting of National Alliances Against Hunger with representatives from Ireland, Switzerland, Indonesia, Côte d'Ivoire, and they were saying we have a common enemy. It's poor quality diets. In the West, we eat junk because we're the victims of aggressive commercializing and very badly processed foods. And in the developing countries, they don't have access to safe foods. The lady in Indonesia said, for us, it's the same. In urban areas where we have the same problems, and in rural areas, that challenge. So I love that idea of a common enemy. And I think the beauty of it with agriculture is we're tackling both undernutrition and overnutrition at the same time. And I'd like that to also be a call to avoid double standards. At the same time as we're trying to raise funds for more money to upscale our school gardens, we were asked, where's your evidence base? The same week, Michelle Obama was opening her garden in the White House. Where's the evidence base for the American kids? Why is it that for Afghan kids we need some kind of randomized controlled trial to prove that diverse food is good for them? When is basic biology and physiology going to be enough of an argument to get funding? Sorry. I'll pass it on.
Thank you. In China, lots of the challenges I just mentioned. One unique challenge is the unequal development across the country. Just as the flash we saw last day in China, the most richest province, Shanghai, the people went to the supermarket and buy the important meats and fish at a high price. But for the poorest province like Guizhou, the micronutrition deficiency are a common issue for the boarding students. So the inequality is so vast, the government feels the challenge to handle such a question. And from the perspective of nutrition and health, the coexistence in the context of such inequality, the coexistence of overnutrition and malnutrition is the major problem for Chinese people. For urban citizens, the too much meat intake. For the rural areas, the poor kids cannot say only can eat meat during the festival days. So it's a unique challenge for the government. But to my understanding, it's also an opportunity for the private sectors how to set up the value chain to meet the high demands, to meet the demand of the high quality food for rich level, and how to provide good quality and high quality of food from the rural areas. The agriculture is the linkage between the two, between the demand and the supply. Welcome your ideas and welcome your comments to set up the linkage. Thank you.
Mariana, my college, Brazil governments, answer for me first perspectives.
Hello, my name is Mariana Santarelli. I also work for the Ministry of Social Development in Brazil. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about the challenges we had in our work and trying to tell how we are coping with it. I think one of the main challenges we have is related to inter-sectoral approach. We are trying to build an intersectoral policy, and I think that a very important thing that we did right in the beginning of the Hunger Zero program was to build one concept that could bring together all the sectors that were working towards food security. And that's a concept that we use in Brazil that we call food and nutritional food security. I think that makes all the difference because I do not have the concept here. I would like to hear to read them for you. But it is a concept that really, like all stakeholders that work with the issue, really find themselves with it. So people from health, people from the nutritional sector, people, rural workers, unions, the government that works with agriculture, education, everybody finds themselves in this concept. And it was built in a very broad and participatory process that we have in Brazil, that are the national conferences that usually bring together. We had already in food security, we already had 3 big conferences that bring together like 1,000, 2,000 people every 4 years. So this concept became a law. We have a national food security law that gives institutional status to the concept that we built. And I think that from that concept, we started to work together in a common direction. And it also brings, the concept also has axes that are more specific to each field, but it really brings together everybody on that. I think also we were able to build some programs that are intersectoral in their basis, like, for example, the Bolsa Família, the income cash transfer program, since it has conditionalities related to health and to education. So it really makes all the sectors have to work together from national to local level. Another example is the food acquisition program, which is a program that kind of inspired the P4P that the World Food Program works. It's a program that buys food from the smallholder agricultures and sell. The government buys the products for them for a fair price and use this food that is bought in food assistant initiatives, school feeding, popular restaurants, and initiatives like that. This program has a national council, a national committee, and also local committees that bring together health, agriculture, education, social assistant workers to build this initiative. The same thing for the school feeding program. So I think this is still a challenge for us, but we are managing to be more efficient. Another thing is that since we work in a food rights perspective, it means that we intend that all our programs are universal to the public that they intend to attend. We necessarily need to work very closely to the local governments, with the local governments. We have 3 levels of government in Brazil: the national, the state level, and the municipalities. And what we're trying to do is to build national systems in a way that we can really decentralize responsibilities and work together with municipalities. This is a huge challenge because we have to build very strong alliances and very strong consensus, but I think we're kind of managing to deal with that. And the third one, of course, is budget, because since we want to be universal, it means that we need, it is a priority for our government to make food arrive to people and also to have a more sustainable way to produce food. But that demands a lot of budget, especially national budget. And what we see is that national government is very much involved with that, but still state governments and municipal governments are not, well, they put big efforts, but still it's not enough to feed all our population. I would say that these are some challenges we have.
One concern we had was that nutritious food should not be expensive. And that is why the entire agriculture strategy was to produce diverse food within the village and focus on fruits, fruit trees. So we also don't have a micronutrient deficiency because of this diversity of foods. So I believe that good, healthy food should be more economical than the kind of food we are eating right now. Otherwise, this cannot be scaled up. It will remain only as a very small program. And we had very interesting challenges. The most important challenge was that a lot of people told me that you can't have agriculture without chemicals. So we were able to disprove them on a very large scale. We have now about 1 million hectares which is under pesticide-free farming and very low chemical fertilizer usage. So a lot of people dissuaded us, said it's not possible. But when the farmers were challenged, they came up with these solutions. Now the issue about suicide of farmers, because that is what motivated us to get into this low-cost farming, because farming itself had become unviable for the smallholders of because in India and particularly in Andhra Pradesh, 85 to 90% of farmers are small and marginal farmers. So in order to make agriculture profitable for them, we went into this whole strategy of community managed sustainable agriculture. And as far as interest in these nutrition centers are concerned, it is between 0 to 6% per annum. So it's half the, whatever is the bank rate of interest. This is from the project fund, so it is extremely affordable. And no, sorry, let me complete, okay? Please.
Can you hold your comments, please?
Challenge of scaling, in fact, I think is the most important challenge. And the strategy we adopted was that this is a model which should be scaled by the poor people themselves. So believing in their capabilities, building their skills to manage the interventions themselves is the best way of scaling up. And that is now the challenge for me is to do this on the national scale, because I've just moved to Government of India from Andhra Pradesh. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of our excellent panelists and Laura Burks, who did a wonderful job chairing the session. And it's been a great privilege to learn from everyone here. And the two key messages that I think that I'm taking away here is that if we involve people and we listen to them and involve them as agents of their own development, that really is what brings about development and not dependency, which is hopefully what we're all in the business of. And that working intersectorally is quite possible, especially when you have one concept and vision, and there's that created joint ownership, and if it's prioritized at the national level. So the degree to which we can work together with key stakeholders to create that vision and share that vision, and we can sustain it, hopefully through institutionalizing it, not just in private or NGO or international structures, but through the government structures, I think we can be successful. So thank you very much to everyone.